A loaded show for you this Friday. It all comes down to one game, the national championship between Ohio State and Notre Dame. And we have the best of the best, our team site experts right here at 24/7 Sports, along with our other analysts that will give their take. But first, let's highlight those Ohio State Buckeyes who come into the national championship with a massive chip on their shoulder.
When you're Ohio State, everybody is chasing you because they want what you have. And every week, we have to defend it. That's the reason why it's called Ohio against the world. I'll make sure you guys all understand that. It's us against everybody else. We're proud to be from Ohio, and it's always been Ohio against the world, and it'll continue to be Ohio against the world.
And with that, we welcome in Dave Biddle from bucknuts.com. Dave, it's been a whirlwind of the last month and a half. If you've been following Ohio State football, the expectations, we knew it going into the season, the $20 million roster. Now, all of a sudden, Ryan Day, one win away from a national championship. You think about the story of the season, you lose your fourth straight game to Michigan. You miss out on the Big Ten championship. Now they're here in the national championship in Atlanta. Dave, in your opinion, what has led and sparked this turnaround for Ohio State?
Yeah, first of all, Cooper, I've never seen anything like this in sports where like a month and a half ago, like the majority of Ohio State fans wanted Ryan Day fired. Now he's on the precipice of a national championship. And if he wins, no one in Buckeye Nation is going to care about the 1-4 record against Michigan. He'll be a legend in Ohio forever. Yeah, they'd prefer to be 4-1 against Michigan under Ryan Day. But if he wins the national championship, Buckeye fans will not care about that. And that's like a national narrative that I keep hearing. Like, well, will they forgive him for like losing to Michigan? Yes, they for sure will. What has led to this? You know, you could say Michigan woke them up, you know, that they're now a ticked off team because, you know, they came into the year with all the expectations and they had some ups and downs. At times they would look like a juggernaut and at times they would look nothing like a juggernaut. And then I think the Michigan game woke them up, Cooper, and they've been really good on both sides of the ball. Special teams haven't been good for Ohio State during the regular season. Special teams have even been solid during the postseason. So a lot's led into it, but I think just getting like a angry mentality has been the biggest factor.
Yeah, they've certainly shifted philosophically, at least from that psychological standpoint for Ohio State. But the other thing I wanted to bring up defensively, right? It wasn't that long ago. You and I were on this show. We were talking about, hey, maybe there's a little friction there between defensive line coach Larry Johnson, defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. These guys have been lights out since that Oregon game back in October. Why do you think those defensive changes since that last time we talked have been so effective?
I really think, Cooper, that Ryan Day allowed defensive coordinator Jim Knowles to do what he wants to do. And you're thinking, wait, why would that take 2.5 years? You know, Jim Knowles, this is his third year at Ohio State. It really took halfway through his third season. Yeah, it did. I mean, and you can just see it. Just pop on the film of the first Oregon game. The front four, the defensive line, and the back seven were not on the same page. And there's a ton of examples I could give you. And since then, Jim Knowles, this looks like what he did at Oklahoma State schematically, but with better players. And they had a really good defense, especially his last year at Oklahoma State. They had like the top 5 defense in the country, which is pretty crazy for a Mike Gundy team. So Jim Knowles now has full control over this defense, and he's doing things like deploying Caleb Downs, almost like a hybrid Mike, rover back, however you want to look at it. I've heard people compare it to how Miami and the Ravens, how they would use Ed Reed, or how the Steelers would use Troy Polamalu. If you're a Buckeye fan, even if you don't like those guys, because if you're a Browns fan or a Bengals fan, they terrorized your teams, you know Troy Polamalu and Ed Reed are tremendous safeties. So when Caleb Downs is getting compared to that, that's a tremendous compliment. And then, you know, Cooper, that's also led to things like Cody Simon being free at middle linebacker. He's putting together a tremendous season at middle linebacker. I thought linebacker was the question mark for Ohio State's defense coming into the season. It's not a question any longer.
This offensive line has had to endure a lot this season. A lot of injuries, a makeshift offensive line, but they played well in the playoffs. Now probably one of their biggest tests to date in a very spicy defensive front from South Bend in Notre Dame. How do you see this playing out in the national championship?
Yeah, this would be my biggest concern if you're an Ohio State fan, because even though Ohio State's offensive line has played well during the CFP, I mean, they're still down 2 of their starters, and can they do it one more time? That's like, I mean, other than like turnovers and like special, That's like the biggest thing that I'm focusing on, Cooper, is can this offensive line handle a really good Notre Dame defense? I mean, they're talented, they're tough, they're physical, and Al Golden is a heck of a defensive coordinator. I mean, just one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. And Marcus Freeman is a defensive guy as well, as we all know. So can this offensive line do what they've done the last 3 games? They don't need to dominate, but can they not be, a reason why Ohio State struggles? If they can have a stalemate or win the battle of line of scrimmage, I think it's going to be tough for Notre Dame's defense to get the better of this Ohio State offense.
Dave, appreciate it as always. For more coverage on this game in Ohio State, make sure to check out bucknuts.com. And now we head out to our network of experts who give their insights and predictions on this national championship game, starting with best-selling author and national college football writer John Talty.
There's storylines galore on Monday night's national championship between Ohio State and Notre Dame. You've got the $20 million all-in Ohio State roster that so many of us loved before the season began. They had that devastating loss to Michigan, but now they're right back where we thought they could be. On the flip side, you've got Ohio State alum and Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman, who's going to have to dispose of his beloved alma mater to give Notre Dame its first national championship since 1988. The matchup that I'm most interested in is how Notre Dame tries to slow down this high-flying Ohio State passing offense. Notre Dame's got the number 1 passing efficiency defense. They've said this week they plan to stick to what they do, keep man coverage. We'll see how that works against all-star freshmen Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate. Texas in the semifinal did a good job of slowing down Smith, but still wasn't enough to beat the Buckeyes. That's going to be key for Notre Dame. I think you got to prevent Ohio State from getting out to a lead early like they did against Tennessee. Still, I like Ohio State in this game. I think this could be the last of the super team era. They've got so much talent from top to bottom. I think Ryan Day finally gets that pressure, gets rid of it, wins the big one. Ohio State by 2 scores, 31-17 in that range. Buckeyes will be champions on Monday night.
When it comes to the national championship game, everybody's going to focus on the 2 offenses. But to me, this game's going to come down to the defenses between Notre Dame and Ohio State. The 2 best in the nation scoring defenses. The key here for Notre Dame, that's the underdog, to be able to win this game is they have to be able to run the football and do so effectively against a stellar defensive line. Jeremiah Love, I believe, has probably been one of the top 2 or 3 running backs all season. For Notre Dame, he's got to have a 100-plus yard game to open things up for quarterback Riley Leonard. The problem is Notre Dame is, again, without their starting left tackle, true freshman Anthony Knapp, and they're having to move things around. This could potentially lead to Ohio State with JT Tuimoloau going off against this offensive line, one of the best sacks leaders in the country, along with Jack Sawyer at linebacker. I see Notre Dame's defense, however, keeping this close, locking down Jeremiah Smith just enough and keeping him under 100 yards to where Notre Dame can be in this game late. But Ohio State wins a defensive battle going away 28-21 in Atlanta, ending all that criticism for Ryan Day.
More from our team of experts later in the show, including the man, Josh Pate, who will give his prediction for the game. But up first, we hear from the Notre Dame side and a story about Notre Dame's quarterback that you don't want to miss.
Take advantage of the opportunity. You all put in tremendous amount of work to get to this point. But right now is about right now. Give everything you got in your heart to this place. Be confident and be aggressive in everything you do. Give it all. Just give everything you got to this program in this game, and let's come in here celebrate 2 goals.
And with that, we welcome in Drew Mintock from IrishIllustrated.com. Drew, you cannot tell the story of 2024 Notre Dame without talking about Week 2. Not even Week 1 where they beat Texas A&M on the road in College Station, but Week 2 when they lost to Northern Illinois at home. That game had a lot of scar tissue that came with it, but in your opinion, how has that game been utilized by Marcus Freeman and his staff to now springboard them to one game away from hoisting that hardware of a national championship?
Yeah, I think after the loss to NIU, Notre Dame really had to, kind of take a deep dive into itself and a lot of team reflection. I think maybe publicly they downplayed how they felt about it afterwards, but this week they've been talking about, Jalen Snead, for instance, said they felt disgusted. They were an embarrassment to college football at the time. I think that really played an impact after the game. Riley Leonard was so downtrodden that he asked a police officer in the stadium for a ride back to his apartment so he wouldn't have to face fans outside the stadium. He stayed up all night. But then the next day he met with Marcus Freeman. He felt like he was going to have to apologize. And Marcus Freeman pretty much just told him, one day you're going to be thankful for this. And with the backs against the wall, Notre Dame closed out the regular season with 10 straight wins, winning by just under 31 points per game. On average. So Notre Dame took its talent advantage for granted against NIU, I think. And the Huskies were the more physical, aggressive team, especially down the stretch. And the Irish haven't let that happen since.
Marcus Freeman has been given a lot of credit for the job that he's done rallying his group all the way to this point, obviously going undefeated since that game. What is it about him that resonates so well with his team? And outside of that, you look back at the previous regime under Brian Kelly, 1-7 against top 5 teams. He has elevated this team to a place that they haven't been in quite some time.
Yeah, I think so. My wife is actually a longtime Detroit Lions fan. I'm sure I'm not the first person to kind of point out these similarities between Dan Campbell, Marcus Freeman, and how they approach the game. But I think ever since, especially that NIU loss, Notre Dame has been extra aggressive, going for it on fourth down, even in their own territory, calling fake punts. At times, I think you can kind of see this as maybe a little bit reckless, but I think to the players, especially when you talk to them and the assistant coaches, they see this as like an unwavering belief in the team, in the fact that he's putting the game in their hands to go out and win it. And I think you really see that kind of his belief in them be internalized, and they believe they can hang with the best teams in the country. As you mentioned, Brian Kelly's 1-5 against top 10 teams. Notre Dame hadn't won a major bowl game since the 1993 season. Now they've won 2 under Marcus Freeman in the last month. That aggressive play-to-win mentality has really kind of changed the culture in a way that, covering the team under Brian Kelly, you didn't really see them have in these big games where they could beat the teams they were supposed to, but then when they came up against some of these better teams, they kind of seemed like they were about to lose as soon as they took the field for pregame warmups.
All right, so they have one more big challenge. They are a 9-point underdog in the biggest game of the year. This is for all the marbles. So Notre Dame in this game, fill in the blank for me, Drew. Notre Dame wins if what?
If they're able to control the line of scrimmage, I think Notre Dame, kind of like Ohio State, but this is left tackle Anthony Knapp, who started every game as a freshman this season. He's out with a high ankle sprain. Charles Jagusa, who was supposed to be the starter in fall camp, he had a chest injury, had surgery, was out until a few weeks ago. Now sounds like he's going to start at left tackle. But this is also the 4th position change they've had along the offensive line this season. So can they kind of control? They're not going to dominate Ohio State's front, but can they get some push and not get blown off the ball? Even with, again, and maintain that physical advantage, which they've been able to do through injuries, but they just keep piling up, and this might be the best defensive front they've seen all year.
Drew Mintock, we appreciate you stopping by and spending some time with us. For more Notre Dame coverage, make sure to check out IrishIllustrated.com. Now let's hear from more of our network of experts on this national championship game, starting with our national college football analyst, Richard Johnson.
For me, it's simple. Notre Dame has to play a perfect game to win the national championship game, and Ohio State does not. We saw it last week against Texas. Even though Ohio State's offense may not have its best punch, the defense can lead the line and help the Buckeyes win football games like they did when Jack Sawyer strip sack fumbled and returned for a touchdown against Quinn Ewers and the Texas Longhorns. The first 2 rounds of the college football playoff saw Ohio State's offense humming on all gears, being as good as we've seen them all year. I think the matchup is particularly bad against Notre Dame as well. Notre Dame is a team that plays a lot of man defense out of single high looks. If they do that against the Buckeyes, it's going to be a long night. Ohio State fulfills its destiny, its national title or bust destiny, and wins this game by 2 scores. They cover the 8-point spread, and they hoist the trophy on Monday night.
When I think of keys to this game right away, I think Notre Dame needs to be able to run the football, and that means Jeremiah Love and Aeneas Williams. In Ohio State's lone loss of the season to Michigan, Kalel Mullings rushed for 116 yards and a touchdown, and I think Love in particular will need a similar stat line, if not better, for the Irish to come out on top. I also think they're going to have to find ways to generate pass rush on Will Howard. We all know Ohio State has great skill talent, so they're going to have to make him uncomfortable in the pocket, and in turn, the Buckeyes' ability to protect him will be important in this game. Both teams are playing really good football right now, so I expect a close contest. I lean Buckeyes, but based on the way Notre Dame has been playing, it will be competitive. In the end, I think there's too much firepower, too much skill talent, and even if you try to take away that skill talent, Will Howard can still beat you with his feet. So I'm going to go Buckeyes 31, Irish 23.
16 months ago, I was in Notre Dame Stadium on the field when Ohio State scored in the final seconds to beat Notre Dame in South Bend. Here we are 16 months later, playing for the 2024 season national championship. Marcus Freeman going up against his alma mater, Ryan Day, with a roster that was built for this moment. I see a similar situation to what happened in South Bend that day. I think that the Buckeyes get past the Irish 24-23. All those players came back to Ohio State for their senior season. That Egbuka, JT Tuimoloau, Gene Scott, Jack Sawyer are going to leave Atlanta with their first national championship for Ohio State in 10 years. Marcus Freeman and the Irish are going to get close, but I think at the end of the day, the Buckeyes win this one.
As our national championship coverage continues, Josh Pate joins me to break down this game as we discuss the on-field matchups that will determine the outcome. Before this game is played on Monday night, we got excited and decided to simulate on EA Sports College Football 25. And in 20 simulations, Ohio State won an overwhelming 18 times, but that was a video game. It's time to break down what we actually think will happen, and to help us do that is Josh Pate, host of Josh Pate's College Football Show. Josh, welcome. Good to have you here. Got the coffee cup in hand. I know you've been working hard. Let's talk about this, man. Ohio State, Notre Dame, national championship matchup. First thing that comes to mind for me, you got 2 teams that got a little bit of built-up scar tissue, right? When you think about Ohio State, 4 straight losses to Michigan. When you think about Notre Dame, an early loss to Northern Illinois. For you, for somebody that covers this game coast to coast nationally, how do you view the regular season and how maybe Ohio State, Notre Dame, and their path towards a national championship has changed that perception for how you weigh these games?
You cannot ever put a period on the end of the sentence now. I think, obviously a lot of us, we're all going through the 12-team iteration of the playoff for the first time. So I thought just like you did, probably after that Northern Illinois loss, because that's week 2. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's not late in the season. That's week 2. You're thinking, wow, they've got presumably 0 margin for error. Even if they go undefeated, it may not be enough. Well, we didn't know what we didn't know. First off, we didn't know the collateral damage that would surround them and the rest of the country, and we didn't know the kind of run that they would go on and the kind of 0 margin for error ball that they'd play. And in retrospect, I don't think they changed a thing. It probably brought out an element of that team that, for all we know, wouldn't have been brought out. The Oregon loss for Ohio State, awesome game. I thought it was one of their better played games of the year. Took nothing away from them. But when you lose the Michigan game, the way you do, I know revisionist history is going to sound in 10 years like, man, we all knew they were about to go on a run. Man, no one was stopping Ohio State if they win this thing Monday night. Well, that's not the way it felt. It's not the way it felt at all. And then they make the playoff only because it's expanded. They wouldn't have made it in previous years. And they've come to prove themselves as one of maybe the best team in the country. But the best teams don't always win because the best teams don't always earn their way in. So I think in the aggregate, what I've learned, and both of those teams have served to teach us this year, is Safety net's a lot bigger. You treat the data points of losses a lot different. And it's going to take multiple shots instead of just one to knock you out of this thing.
People don't know this about you, but you actually grind a lot of tape. You got access to the all 22.
What do you think the coffee's for?
That's why. That's what you've been doing. You've been grinding the tape. I want to know, Notre Dame, the underdog in this game, what did they have to do in your mind to pull off the upset and to win a national championship under Marcus Freeman?
They got to make 20 points win for them. I think people are going to go to turnovers. They should. It's been a key metric for them all year. I think they've got to affect passes as much as the passer. So you can put your pressure statistics out there. You can hit the quarterback, great. Sack the quarterback, great. You can't count on that every snap. And if I'm playing a team like Ohio State where they could explode at any given moment, what I want to do, if I'm Marcus Freeman, if I'm Al Golden, I trust my guys. I play man as much, if not more than anyone. I'm going to do it against Ohio State because I'm not going to go down without swinging my best. But I think what they have to do is just hands in passing lanes, hurrying up, maybe disrupting timing and rhythm, tackling on the perimeter, which Oregon didn't do a good job of from bell to bell against Ohio State. That kind of stuff at least buys you the opportunity to force incompletions, force 3 and outs, force turnovers. The magic number that seems to be floating around is a lot of people think they need 2 turnovers. I don't know if it's that because they lost the turnover battle against Penn State, but they played really complimentary football. Then if you can kind of add on the sandwich a layer of special teams, tilting of the field, not to mention a special team score. If you can give me 2 or 3 explosive passes like Riley Leonard had against Penn State, all that stuff serves to, if you can maybe force some fruitless drives from Ohio State, 8 plays, 64 yards doesn't mean anything if you come away with a goose egg. If they turn you away 4th and goal on the 2. That, to me, is the formula for them to win. It's not that it can't happen. It's just that I think there are a lot more things that have to go right for Notre Dame to win it.
A lot of good insight from Coach Pate. Should be up for an analyst job this offseason, Coach. I want to ask you, Ryan Day, the subject of a lot of criticism, which we haven't heard a lot of over the last couple of weeks since Ohio State has made this run. What's going to be the biggest overreaction for Ohio State in Ryan Day if they don't find a way to win this game?
I think a lot of the folks who yelled what they yelled after the Michigan game would revert back to the same talking point. They would look at the season holistically, and they would say, we won some playoff games that we were only afforded the opportunity to play in because the format changed. So in the aggregate, you get further away from the season if they lose Monday night. We didn't beat Michigan. We didn't win the Big Ten. We didn't even play for the Big Ten title. And we didn't win a national championship. Those are the goals around here. Really, we had a couple of nice playoff wins, games we should have won. Now, that's not fair, but that's what they'll say. But we still didn't accomplish any of our goals. So, and I'm using the skeptic's viewpoint. This is not the way I feel about Ryan Day at all. But the skeptic would look at that and say, why should I treat this any different than previous years that I also deem a failure? And then you've got the voice of Urban Meyer echoing out there in the podcast sphere right now saying, oh, absolutely. Torch the guy. Go after him. No. Don't let up, guys. That's the way it should be. That's probably the way it will be because you've got the blessing of being favored by over a touchdown against Notre Dame, which becomes a big curse if you lose the game.
All right, now what the people have been waiting for, your prediction for this game.
I have been 0 for my life basically this year. It feels like picking against Notre Dame, but I just think Ohio State's too good. So I'm going to go Ohio State to win. If you care about such things, I will go with them to cover something like 23-13, 20-10, something like that.
I'm going to go 31-24 Ohio State. Ohio State buzzsaw. They've been playing so well. Hat tip, Marcus Freeman. I think it's anybody's game. We'll see what happens. Notre Dame going to throw the kitchen sink at them. Josh Pate, we appreciate you as always. And for more Josh Pate, you can check out Josh Pate's college football show every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on his YouTube channel and wherever you find your podcast. And now we hear from our final group of analysts as they predict this game, starting with former Maryland GM and national analyst Smoke Dixon.
The 2 storylines heading into the national championship game is who can create the most explosive plays on offense and who plays the best red zone defense. For Notre Dame on offense, Jeremiah Love, one-cut slasher that's been a kryptonite for Ohio State's run defense, and he's averaged over 17 yards per carry. For Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith, the best receiver in college football. He's big, fast, explosive, and Notre Dame does not have a defender in their secondary that can cover him one-on-one. On defense, for Ohio State, in terms of the red zone, that's Caleb Downs. His responsibility, spy Riley Leonard, take away his legs, and force Riley Leonard to make tight window throws. For Notre Dame, Jack Kaiser, Mr. Do-It-All, captain, spy on Will Howard, take away his legs, and force Will Howard to make tight window throws and give up 3 points and not 7. My prediction, Ohio State 24, Notre Dame 14.
What a fun matchup from a roster building standpoint. A lot of similarities between these two schools, both using a transfer portal veteran quarterback, both with elite run games where they use a variety of different ball carriers, both having to lean on offensive line depth due to some injuries up front, both with elite secondary play. And it's not just those corners. I don't think anyone's talking about the fact that 2 of the game's top safeties will be in action in Monday night. In Ohio State's Caleb Downs, Notre Dame's Xavier Watts. These guys see it a different way than most, and they can do a variety of different things. I like Ohio State here. I think Notre Dame's going to keep it close. I think they're going to keep it within the number. And if you're looking for maybe a fun prop bet, how about a Jeremiah Smith anytime touchdown? Remember, former number 1 overall player for 24/7 Sports.
As we look ahead, the NFL draft is right around the corner, and our draft expert settles the debate for the number 1 pick. But first, we hit the latest news around the country.